What is the most degrading thing you have ever done for money? I worked at a grocery store. I used to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on break since it was cheap. I'd buy all the ingredients and just sit in the break room and scarf down 3-4 sandwiches before returning to work. One day, one of my co-workers saw me scarfing them down and asked if I could eat the whole loaf of sandwiches. I told him I think I could, but asked what he wanted to bet me. He said if I could do it, that he'd buy me a whole loaf of bread, jar of peanut butter, and jar of jelly. Naturally I agreed. I managed to eat the whole thing in a little under 30 minutes, but admittedly I was being pretty sparse with my usage of PB&J by the end. When I finished, I felt like walking at my normal speed would make my body explode, so I walked at half speed and took it easy. Admittedly I did it as a broke college kid because I'd save about $4 by having him buy me a new jar of PB and a new jar of J. This experience didn't stop me from continuing to eat PB&J on future breaks. Also, later that night I took the biggest crap in the world. Somebody in the world takes the biggest crap of the day, every day, and they don't even know it. I think about that a lot. Maybe they do know it. Was an absolutely broke ass student. We are talking literally zero in the bank when my friends were going to a house party that weekend. Well, have fun guys. I don't even have bus fare to get there. Never mind cash for a pizza and some drink. One of my mates says they will loan me PS25 and just pay them back when I got paid from work. Turns out the place we were going to was 2 bus rides to get there, with no late night student bus getting back to town. So I was going to have to use the remaining PS20 to split a taxi fare with one of the guys back home, which would have been about PS30 in total. This left me approximate PS5 for food and drink at this party that we had just rocked up to. Frick it, I'll just get the cheapest bottle of cider and 4 cans of lager and just get hammered on that. Get back to the party and put the 2L bottle of something resembling apple cider and the cans on the kitchen worktop looking for a pint glass to start making some snake bites when I hear a massive crash behind me. A wasted girl had knocked the cans of lager onto the hard stone floor, bursting 2 of them in a shower of lukewarm booze. My friends decided to host a fundraiser for me, where for every dare I completed they would chuck in a PS1 coin. Over the course of the night I swapped my t-shirt with one of the girls, who was wearing a small petite pink tank top. I'm a 6 foot tall guy who weighs 18 stone, 250 pounds. Pulled out some of my chest hair and ate it in a bread bun. Put some lip gloss on and had to refer to the other guys as sailor for an hour. Waxed my shins. Made a fake account on Adult Fantasy RPG forum and had to read out the few responses I got in the guise of Gandalf, complete with mop, clean and dry, beard, wearing a green dressing gown at the top of the stairs. All in all it was fun night, but damn I was whoring myself out PS1 at a time. Worked as a slot attendant for a casino, was groped almost daily, and didn't even get to keep my tips. Moved on to another casino as cage cashier, still pretty degrading, but out of arm's reach, and I kept my tips. Quit the industry altogether when they started pulling. Worked at a casino as a beverage server for 3 days. The amount of old men that almost ate their teeth for grabbing my ass was unreal. Quit because of it. My first job out of college was in the bicycle industry as a manufacturer's rep. The big show is in Vegas, so I was there with all the other reps for the company I was just hired to rep for. They were, surprisingly, or maybe not, all kinda dumpy, middle-aged white guys that looked more at home sitting on a bar stool than a bike. So we are all sitting at the Venetian having some drinks. This beautiful young Asian woman had the unfortunate duty of having to wait on us. She goes around the table getting drink orders and gets to this one notably older guy who looks like everyone's grandpa. Like everyone else she asks, "What can I get for you, sir?" Dude just casually says a gin and tonic and your phone number. I knew right there that I was not going to be with this company for long, and I wasn't. This girl just had to stand there and take it. Still don't get how people would say crap like that. Nearly 20 years later, I'm still disgusted. Years back, some guy offered to buy my shoes off me in the street. These shoes were falling apart, split down the heel, holes in the sole, scuffed to hell. Being worn by a strung out looking skinny person said to me, "I'll give you 40 quid for your shoes, I collect shoes." I was actually just down the street from my flat, so I kinda looked at him for a secretary and said, "Are you serious?" To which he nodded solemnly. I got my shoes off so damn fast. I wasn't wearing any socks either. This didn't seem to faze him. He immediately handed me PS50, took the shoes, and walked off without a further word. I went into my flat, put on another pair of even more messed up shoes, went back out, and spent that 50 quid on booze and some other crap. TBH, even if I hadn't been right down the street from my flat, I probably would have taken him up on it. I was extremely broke. He definitely fricked those shoes, and for £50. I sincerely hope he enjoyed it. Foot fetishes are a thing. Wouldn't surprise me if you not wearing socks was a bonus for him. Some of them relish the smell. Back when I was in 8th grade, there was a kid named Nick who was in several of the same classes as me. He was a short, painfully naive guy, ready to believe just about anything if it was told to him in an authoritative tone of voice. He also fancied himself as something of a badass, and as such, when he was told that a surefire way to increase his reputation was to clobber the tallest guy on campus, he threw himself into the endeavor. As it happened, I was the tallest person that Nick knew, and he wasn't exactly confident that he could beat me up. "Hey, Maximum," he said to me one day, "do you want to make some money?" Nick and I had gone through numerous business transactions before, usually involving beef jerky, so the question didn't strike me as particularly strange. "What do you need?" I asked. "I have to beat you up," Nick said, "and you have to pretend to lose." "What? Why?" The other boy glanced around, as though he was afraid of being overheard. "Some guys said I'd be more popular if I kicked your ass, but I don't want to fight you." Again, I repeated, "Why? Why would that make you more popular? Can I pretend to beat you up or not?" Nick snapped, looking anxious. "I'll give you $10. I'd given stupider performances for less, like the time that Nick had paid me to kick a garbage can full of bees, so I reluctantly agreed. At hearing this, the other boy wanted to choreograph a drawn-out fight scene, but I talked him into a more believable alternative. Nick would walk up to me in full view of his audience, who would be watching from across the basketball court, sock me in the stomach, then drive his elbow into my back. When I doubled over, I'd fall to the ground, he'd kick me, then I'd claw my way upright and chase him until I succumbed to my injuries. That afternoon at recess, we put our plan into effect. Everything went exactly as we'd discussed until it came time for me to meet Nick behind the gym and collect my money. It didn't work. He lamented. "Everyone says I lost the fight. How does that work?" I asked. "I never even touched you." "Yeah, but you got up and chased me, and I ran away." The logic of that interpretation didn't make a lot of sense to me, but I didn't care enough to question it. "Well, I did what we agreed, so you need to pay up." "No," the other boy replied. "The deal was for you to make me look tough. Now I look even worse. Just imagine how you'll look if you don't pay me." At the time, I had meant to imply that I'd let the cat out of the bag about the true nature of our fight, but Nick took the threat as something a little bit more physical in nature. He offered hasty reassurances, handed over the money, then asked if we could stage another altercation in the near future. I told him that I'd need a larger bribe that time around, and that I'd need it before we fought. The price was apparently too steep, because we never had our match. This almost feels like a side quest in The Witcher 3. Not necessarily for money, but in high school I went naked hot tubbing in exchange for my friend's Sparks 360. I owned Fallout New Vegas, but didn't have an Sparks of my own. I just borrowed other people's. Getting naked wasn't the issue, because I had already gone to nudie hot springs and skinny dipping with these guys. I was just a nerdy homebody, and couldn't be bothered to leave the house that night. Unbeknownst to me, I was apparently relatively attractive, fit and skinny, and they wanted me to go and get naked to try to get the other girls to do the same. I specifically remember one of these girls was super hot, and I was really surprised to hear she was going. So it was kinda like a once in a lifetime opportunity to our little high school brains. Turns out, I'm bi. Anyway, the deal was struck. I showed up and took my swimsuit off. Other girls took their swimsuits off. I got my Sparks. Nothing ever ended up happening with any of those guys and the girls, but I guess they might have seen boobs. I'd do that for an Sparks. Cheapest Sparks I ever got. Thank you, horny teenage boy. Okay, story time. We were on a bus for wrestling. We arrive at the venue and everyone is dehydrated/starving, as we are all geared up for weigh-in. Weigh-in is on Tuesday and the actual competition starts on Wednesday and goes through Thursday. So we weigh in, and then come the sports drinks followed shortly by the nearest buffet, Sis's Pizza. It is a post-apocalyptic scene of mayhem as we descend upon this unsuspecting venue like a biblical plague. Bets are flying as teenage boys brag about how much food they are going to put down and how quickly. To this day, I don't know why I did it exactly. There were certainly less appalling ways to get money, but I had just blown my paycheck on N's Box and Halo 2, and I really wanted to take Cassie Robinson out that Friday. I'm talking /the/ Cassie Robinson. If you'd have seen her you'd understand. I hatched this half-baked plan, and it starts right there in the restaurant. I barely eat anything. Just one slice of pizza off of someone else's plate and water. Everyone's asking why I'm not eating, and I just reply I'm saving room for dessert. Understandably they are confused looks as the dessert section is just over there, but I nod knowingly and give a wink and everyone just kind of moved past it. Fast forward an hour and a half, and we are back on the bus. Half the guys are green in the gills, and I watch the second part of what I had seen in the restaurant. Money changing hands, and it's all going to Big Brian, who wasn't looking too hot after making a substantial dent in a certain pizza chain's bottom line. He stuffs the money in his pocket, and I move over next to him, concerned for his well-being. I start talking about all the different times I've seen people like him, just before they start puking, describing the smell in detail. Lastly I tell him about a time I'd seen a dog eating it up. Seconds before my story was done, Brian becomes a firehouse of vomit, all pizza and root drink and Dr. Pepper. The noise in the bus shuts off like someone closed the tap and everyone is looking from Big Brian to the mess in the floor stunned. This is where my foresight pays off, and my stomach growls loud enough for everyone to hear. I see looks of disgust pass between the guys near me. I spoke up into the quiet, and everyone heard me clearly. Anyone dare me to eat it? The entire bus exploded. I yelled back that everyone would have to make it worth my while. Money started piling into the seat next to Big Brian. Jason made himself my honorary treasurer and started counting, yelling the new amount as money started pouring in. It got quiet again. We agreed on how much I had to eat to get the money, 2 handfuls. I tried to get it down to 1, but no one was having it. Anyone could eat 1, they said. Fine. Okay. I looked down at the wad of cash and back up Jason and shook my head before looking at Big Brian. He got the picture and fished out his winnings, throwing it into the pot. Before I could open my mouth, an arm reached over my shoulder and threw a $20 onto the pile. We all looked up to see the coach smiling down. It was street this point that I started to rethink my entire life. I'd put myself on the spot in a big way and I'd never live it down if I didn't follow through. But then there was this huge pile of half-chewed, soggy, pre-digested gruel in front of me. Jason shouted the count, $127 and change. It was quiet again. I was about to chicken out when I thought about Cassie Robinson. /the Cassie Robinson / and I knew what I had to do. This one's for you, Cassie. I reached down and grabbed a still warm double handful of slop, held my breath, and brought it up to my mouth. I knew I'd puss out unless I just went hardcore. So I did. I started eating as fast as I could, imagining it was instant oatmeal slightly root drink flavored. I heard this last bit from the coach because I was trapped in a different world at the time and don't really remember the actual deed, like most of our deepest shames. Coach said that everyone recoiled and groaned, but they all held it together until, at one point I peeked around my hands and saw a line of slop dripping down my forearm and leaned around to lick it off. He said that's when everyone else started to throw up. That was about the time I started noticing the world around me. It was the smell that had finally broken through whatever mental barriers I had put up. Windows were dropped. One guy didn't quite get it down as he puked directly into the glass and himself, while others were hanging out the window as we drove, and more were just tucking in between their knees. It took 2 days for us to clean the bus, because we had to go into and out of it in shifts, because of the smell. But we got it done. TL. Doctor ate a double handful of fresh vomit for $127 and change at a wrestling competition. I almost puked reading this, WTF man.